What's up, beautiful image bearers? It's me, CA3, and today we're taking a look at Isaiah 46. This particular chapter of Isaiah really hits home the idea of the futility of idols. This entire chapter is about dead idols versus a living God. So it starts with the idols of the nations being carried into captivity. It says Baal bows down, Nebo stoops. Baal and Nebo were names of two false gods the idol-worshipping nations served. It's as if now God gets personal. He's naming names when it comes to idols. And now these false gods are brought low. And a fun fact, the names of these pagan gods, Baal and Nebo, is actually where the names Belshazzar and Nebuchadnezzar come from. But in chapter 45, Isaiah actually declares that every knee will bow to the Lord, and here he pictures the gods of the great Babylon stooping low in humiliation. But the passage goes on to say, your idols were on the beasts and on the cattle, your carriages were heavily loaded. So Isaiah here pictures God's people actually going into captivity in a forced relocation, which of course is nothing new for the people of Israel at this time. But it says, loaded on to their beasts and carriages are their idols. Even their idols are being carried away, basically being loaded onto moving trucks. And so the bottom line is these idol gods could not actually deliver the people from their burden. I mean, the idols themselves were basically being taken into captivity. But now Isaiah kind of switches pace here in this chapter to go from the futility of actually worshiping idol gods that can do nothing for you to ultimately reminding the people of the true and living God who's able to carry them through anything. It says in verse 3, who have been upheld by me from birth, who have been carried from the womb. So these false gods that were represented by dumb dead idols had to be carried. But the contrast is God actually carries his people, carried them from before their birth, and he promises to continue to carry them. That's why it says in there, even to gray hairs I will carry you. It says, I have made and I will bear, even I will carry. And this is very reminiscent in the New Testament of Jesus in Luke 12 and 6 through 7, which says, are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 copper coins, and not one of them is forgotten before God, but the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Do not fear, therefore, you are of more value than many sparrows. So what's the idea here? Basically, when we understand that he has made us and we're valuable to him, then we can trust him to carry us. So it really is a good question to ask yourself these days, because although most of us don't worship actual idol gods these days, many of us are still very much guilty of idolatry. But the question you have to ask yourself is, do you carry your gods, or does your God carry you? So we see now that the Lord can save his people when the idols are actually helpless. It says they lavish gold out of the bag. Basically, much money and attention is given to the production and the care of idols. But it says, yet though one cries out to it, yet it cannot answer nor save him out of his trouble. Again, Isaiah is exposing the foolishness of idolatry. Whatever you idolize typically can't do anything for you. But now we have a call to remember, okay? Remember that the Lord knows the beginning and the end. So we shift even more from talking about these foolish idols to reminding the people the importance of trusting God because of who God is. So it says, remember this and show yourselves men, which actually means to not only remember this, but to show yourselves courageous. So it says we can gain the courage of men when we remember the things God tells us to remember. How much defeat we suffer in the Christian life through simply forgetting. But it also says, remember the former things of old. There is none like me declaring the end from the beginning. So God knows the end of every matter, just as clearly as somebody else can see the beginning of it. He sees the entire thing. But it says, saying, my counsel shall stand and I will do all my pleasure. So again, God knows the end from the beginning, but he knows this because he is much more than just an observer of what happened. It says his counsel shall stand. So basically his works and plans never fail because he will do whatever he wants to do, whatever is pleasurable to him to do. So God isn't just watching history as it unfolds. He's actually directing the events. He has a hand in whatever happens. Nothing surprises God. So the essential point here is, as God's people, we have to remember that he knows the end from the beginning. And because of that, he is in control of all things. He's sovereign. And so when we remember this, we will show ourselves to be courageous. And that courage, of course, is not found in ourselves. It's found in remembering who he is and what he's able to do. But finally, Isaiah closes this out by calling them to remember that the Lord will bring a deliverer to Zion. And so it says, calling a bird of prey spray from the east, the man who executes my counsel. And this is a reference to the pagan king Cyrus. And so God's people basically needed to remember that God always has a deliverer for his people, even if he has to find one among pagan kings. God is able to use whatever, whoever, however to deliver his people. And so it says, my salvation shall not linger. And God's people need to remember that God's timing is always precise and it's always wise. And so when we're stubborn-hearted, we need to listen to the Lord and remember he never delays and is never late. God always has his deliverer and always knows exactly when to bring his deliverance. And of course, we see this to be true in the ultimate act of deliverance that was found in the redemptive work of Jesus Christ on the cross. And so because of Jesus, we now have the most important deliverance of all, and that's deliverance from sin, deliverance from death. One day we can be with our Father in heaven because Jesus died for our sins, because he took the blame that we deserved. So think about your life. What are you idolizing? What are you worshiping other than God? Ask yourself, what is that really doing for you? I encourage you to turn to the God of the universe who loves you, cares about you, and is able to carry you through this life. God bless you. I love you, and peace.